This is Swipe on Your Money.
Hello, I'm James Daggar-Nickson. Welcome to Swipe, the show designed to keep you up to date with all the latest and greatest trends and products in tech. Coming up, are the legendary tech stocks, the FAANGs as they've been dubbed, still a good investment? We'll talk to international analyst Clay Carter to find out. Plus, Huawei, it's been in the news of a lot of late, but it doesn't stop them from successfully launching their next range of smart devices. More on that a little later. But first and foremost, the age-old debate and odyssey for the ages. It is the topic that divides the nation. Well, you could argue really all nations. Which is superior, Apple or Android? Well, I spoke to Telsite's Fawad Fadaghi and EFTM.com editor Trevor Long to find out. Trevor Long from EFTM.com and Fawad Fadaghi from Telsite. Thanks very much for joining me. One of the age-old debates, as we've been suggesting in the promo, that's been going to air, Apple versus Android. But look, just to begin with, before we get into the case for each party, is it even fair now? I mean, you've got Apple, a single manufacturer, versus the world of Android. We've got all these giants, Huawei, Samsung, LG. Is it a fair battle?
Oh, look, it's becoming more of a fair battle, I think. You've got a lot more range in the Android product set, and I guess you're seeing consumers opting for one of the two platforms, really.
But in that sense, it's kind of unfair for Apple because they're literally, pumping it. That's why they have so many phones now. You've got 8 phones, 6 colour variants plus, 2 larger phones available to buy. So they kind of need to make it look like they've got a variety of selection because there are options now in Android that do, we've got this huge bent towards Samsung here in Australia, no doubt. The others are struggling but trying really hard to push up. But, Oppo, Huawei, Sony, there's so many brands that there's choice.
Well, Apple's now number 3, isn't it, in terms of the handset manufacturers in terms of sales.
I think it ebbs and flows based on, so it's an annual cycle. Samsung will peak in April when the new one comes out. Apple will peak at the end of the year when theirs comes out. It's very strategic that they should be at separate times of the year, I think.
Let's get into it then. Trevor, I'm going to go for you for the Apple case. Lay down in front of the jury the case for Apple over Android.
Simplicity and a very strict ecosystem. So I can talk to any user of any phone and tell you that when you use an iPhone, it will be simple. You will be able to use it in any way, shape or form. The ecosystem of apps is rock solid and not just the biggest, but the most vetted in a sense because they don't just let anything into the ecosystem. And I think those two things alone are compelling reasons for people to choose Apple, not just continually choose Apple, and Fawad has data about the rate at which people re-buy Apple products, but there is still people who haven't got a smartphone. So the first phone or the first Apple device or the first tablet device is Apple for most.
Just on that data, retention rates, from what I understand, for Apple among their customers is enormous.
Yeah, it's around about 85%. So it's hovered at that kind of level for the last, as far as we've been measuring it. So they tend to get the customer and hold them. And it's not just because of the phone, it's about all the apps and the ecosystem that they build around, like Apple Music. So we've found that there's roughly 2 million households in Australia that are Apple-only households that have 5 or more Apple devices or services, which means they pretty much are locked in.
But that is the ecosystem, isn't it? I mean, if you start with Apple and you want to sort of branch out into the other products and services, you want to make your your home smart or whatever you want, smart speakers, you kind of gotta buy the Apple stuff, don't you?
It's a misnomer. It's genuine. It's completely not true.
Is that right?
Yeah. So one of the guys I work with will not try another phone, and we've got all the phones to try. Will not try a phone other than his iPhone, but Google Home, Alexa is all through his home. See, those products, Google Voice, Google Assistant and Alexa, they work as an app to set up, and from that point on they work. So you don't need to have them, but the point is people think you do, which is why those 2 million homes are so stuck in that ecosystem. People think they need to buy an Apple Mac just to make their phone work. Not true. And so it's a real hook that Apple have created. Very, very, very smart, very good marketing. They've created this sense of ecosystem that is actually not entirely true.
Smart marketing and simplicity, going back to something Trevor said as well. They make it simple.
Simple. The mantra is that it just works, right? This is what Steve Jobs said before, and it was repeated by Tim Cook recently in an earnings call. So I think that really captures the imagination of consumers that don't want to think about technology too much. They just want it to all work together.
There's a little bit going on in the banking space at the moment, as people might be aware of. It's interesting when you talk about the banks in competition. A lot of the reason that people give for not changing banks is apathy. You know, they just can't really be bothered. Is there, do you think, a degree of apathy when it comes to who you're using?
Yeah, I think there is among consumers because we're also, there's a sense of brand loyalty in Australia where we go, well, it works, I'm going to keep using it. And this is Samsung as well. I mean, Samsung is actually more vulnerable than Apple in any way, shape or form because their operating system is the same as Huawei and Oppo and all the others, right? So, but people are still buying Samsungs, probably not the repetitive rate at Apple, but they buy them because they think it's going to keep going the way it does. So there is a complacency among tech companies that they will build that loyalty and keep that loyalty.
Let's go to Android, Fawad. What, as you see it, what is the case for Android?
The case for Android is multiple price points. So you can get into the Android ecosystem from as little as like $100 or even less. So it makes for a very good first smartphone for consumers who are dipping their toe in the water. But also, I guess there's a range of accessories that will work with Android phones, including different smartwatches, as well as Google Home, which is integrated much better with Android ecosystem than it is with iPhones.
So it's just the sheer diversity, is it? Just
it is diversity and price points. I think that's pretty important when you've seen prices go up substantially in the last year. So we've measured on average prices going up 13% across the board for smartphones, and Apple products went up in the order of 20%.
And peaked, well, I don't know if it's peaked out, but there's a lot of criticism over the, what, $2,000 odd for one of the latest?
$2,396, I think it is the top one.
Which just seems, I mean, that's more than a decent laptop.
That's a solid laptop if you need one, right? But the thing is, once you're in the Android ecosystem, and again, this is where Samsung loses out. If you bought a $999 Samsung a few years ago, which was flagship, and now it's $1,500 plus, we'll see in a few weeks. Well, now you go, well, I don't want to spend more, but I can get a similar device for $799 or $499. And that's where the Android ecosystem will challenge itself and create kind of cannibalism within the ecosystem that's great for competition among those companies. But again, it doesn't change the Android versus Apple debate, which stays pretty rock solid until you can convince people to make that switch.
Do you have a preference?
Look, I personally don't have a love of either one, but I do resort back to an iPhone for one simple reason. I have young kids under 12, and they've got iPods and iPads. And when I travel, which I do a lot, I can iMessage them. And there is simply no app that exists that allows you to message between devices that don't have a phone number. So it's the only reason I go back.
Before I get your thoughts on what you prefer to use, it's a great point in terms of that Android world, particularly the low-cost ones coming out of China, and in particular, you mentioned Oppo, Huawei, which is now the second biggest in terms of smartphones, cannibalising each other. Are you going to see reverting back to the lowest cost denominator?
Oh, look, certainly there's a lot of cannibalising that's already happening, continues to happen. You think about some of the household brands that are in the Android space, such as Sony and LG and others, that have been attacked by these lower-cost Chinese manufacturers without such a brand. So it is a bit of a challenge, I think, for many players in that space.
But you would assume that an LG and a Sony could dominate because of their brand recognition in this country, but not at all. They're not even on the radar. You know, Huawei, Oppo, Alcatel, these brands are selling way more phones than those companies, and it just shows the challenge isn't just a brand challenge, it's a product and price challenge. Oppo pushed heavily up into the price bracket, probably the $800-900 mark recently. I think that you're going to see them just stay in that area and a bit lower because they've realised there's big sales happening in direct retail, people buying, you know, $300, $400, $500 phones.
One of the question marks was on quality coming out with some of the lower cost manufacturers. Is that something that's been addressed by them?
Mate, no doubt. And I just said I go back to Apple, but I'm using a Huawei because it is the best phone you can get today, in my opinion. Now, that's on a whole range of things, whether it's just camera or whatever, but build quality, screen quality, camera quality, and just overall operating system usability has improved remarkably over 4 or 5 years. It's taken them time, but they have absolutely made leaps and bounds in terms of progress there, and I think that consumers are looking at that now. They go to a retail store or a telco and they go, well, this is actually really nice, you know. You've got that look, you've got that style. They like the phones.
We've spoken in the past about the market for smartphones, be it Australia or globally, sort of slowing down to a fair degree. There's only so many smartphones that you can have, unless you're Trevor Long with every phone that's ever been made. How does that play out, and what does that mean for both Apple and Android? And is this the much vaunted foldable screen potentially going to be that next evolution that kickstarts?
Smartphone sales fell by about 3% for the second half of the year, according to our research, which we just released today. So the Australian market is definitely slowing down along the lines of most developed marketplaces. Now, the challenge with foldable screens are, yes, they are kind of interesting, but if they make it bulkier or a little bit more difficult to use, then certainly won't resonate with consumers, we think. The key product, or the key feature, I should say, that is coming to smartphones that will dictate what happens in the market going forward will be 5G. Will be the availability of 5G handsets. And what we're seeing today is that because consumers are holding onto their handsets for 3 years, they're thinking, well, what phone am I going to be using in 2022? Right? It's not going to be possibly a 4G handset. We don't even know what the quality of 4G networks will be like in 3 or 4 years' time once that spectrum starts to shift over to 5G.
Now, I asked you, and you said you don't really have a preference, but you go back to iPhone because of the kids.
Yep.
FAANG, Apple versus Android.
I hate to do it, but I'm sitting on the fence. I use both products equally and both at the same time because I just have to for my job.
All right, well...
Takes phone calls like this.
We got to leave it there. FAANG for Daggy, Trevor Long. Brilliant, as always, have you both on. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Time for a quick break. Coming up, we speak to Huawei's Candice Lester about their latest product offerings and just how hard it is to launch new products in this current geopolitical climate. Welcome back. Well, 2018 may have been a disaster for Huawei politically, but on the sales front, they're actually going from strength to strength. Don't believe us? Well, the telecommunications equipment and consumer electronics manufacturer surpassed Apple in handset sales. It's now second only to South Korea's Samsung. We spoke to Huawei Australia's Candice Lester. Candice Lester from Huawei Australia. Do appreciate you joining us. Some exciting tech gadgets to talk about. Firstly, let's start with the smartphone, the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. New release. Talk us through I suppose the key features.
James, this phone is jam-packed full of great features. For me, my two favourite features are the camera, which is a 3-in-1. It's got an ultra-wide lens as well, which is perfect for when you're out travelling, if you're down by Sydney Harbour, or if you're just trying to jam all the family into one photo. It's great for that. The other feature that I think is pretty cool about this, and this is a world first for Huawei, and that's the ability to wireless charge. So say you're down at the park with your friends, you've connected your phone through to your wireless speaker, and all of a sudden the battery starts to die. You can then switch it on, or I could switch mine on and pop your phone on top of mine and recharge your battery.
Do they have to be the same phones?
No, they don't. As long as they have the ability to wireless charge, then you can pop them on and away you go.
So just put back-to-back two phones.
Absolutely.
And they charge?
Yes.
That's extraordinary.
It's great. And our consumers are loving it.
I've been reading a few initial reactions and so forth to the phone, and I've got to say one of the likes that keeps coming up is the on-screen fingerprint scanner. That seems to have been a big tick for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it came as a surprise to us. I mean, everyone these days is short on time. And two really great features about this phone that we've integrated through AI is the ability to do an ultra-quick tap on and unlock it, and then also the face recognition on the phone too. How
important is AI? I mean, just coming back from CES, AI was in everything, but particularly when it comes to phones. I mean, AI, AR, are they becoming increasingly important and present in these phones?
Absolutely, and that's what we're hearing from Australians. People use AI and AR to make their lives easier, and there's a great feature on the phone through the camera as well, where you can, pick up your phone if you're health conscious, or if you want to know how many calories are in, say, a mango, for example. You can pick up your camera, focus it on that mango, and it will tell you how many calories are in there. So I guess it's great for people who also want to keep fit and healthy. It's also great for shopping too. If you're out and you like someone's skirt, you can pop your camera on it and it will tell you how much that skirt was and where you can buy it from.
Phone isn't enough. You get a smartwatch thrown in. Just explain this, the Huawei GT.
So the Huawei GT is a great watch. It's stylish. It's the type of watch you can wear to work. It'll take you through to the night, but you can also exercise with it. The information that comes through to it is perfect. You get your updates from your phone, but then also it tracks your health and fitness. A favourite feature of mine is sleep, so you can look at how much deep sleep you had, how much light sleep you had, if you had any sleep at all.
Now, I have to confess to being a big fan of smart watches. I do have a number of them. One of the things I particularly look for is battery life. I had a Fitbit going back a while, and it was fantastic. You get about 4 days out of it. 10 days. I mean that's what is claimed. Can you get 10 days out of this watch?
Absolutely, and I've had mine for up to 2 weeks without having to recharge it. So I think it just depends on how often you're using it. But I mean, feedback from consumers worldwide was that they want a smartwatch that they don't have to constantly recharge, and this product we think delivers on it, and the feedback's been supportive of that.
Now, we can't talk about some of the products coming out without talking about some of the bigger issues that are happening at a company-wide level. When you're launching new products like this into market, I mean, is there a consideration for the, I suppose, the political climate that currently exists for Huawei?
Look, James, I mean, we've seen sales increase quite significantly in the past year. Last year was a record year for us, so and both nationally and internationally. So we'll keep delivering these great high-quality products to our consumers and our customers, you know, multiple times a year, because that's what they tell us they want. One
of the big issues, and no doubt what a lot of people have read or heard on the news about, is the allegations that have been put forward by the US as it relates to Huawei. Just the company perspective, the view as to what's unfolding over in the US. So Huawei poses no security threat to any country. Our chairman and our CEO have been very honest and transparent in saying that. Look, we operate in more than 170 countries globally, and we're the #1 telecommunications infrastructure maker in the world. So, I mean, you don't get to that position by taking shortcuts. So big year, 2019? 2019, we expect to be one of our biggest years in Australia. We expect our sales will increase, and I think once customers really start to see the power of Huawei through these new products, through some new world-class features that we will be bringing to market, I think they're going to be very excited. Well, we look forward to hearing all about it and seeing it. Candice Lester, do appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much. Thank you, James. Coming up, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix and Google. Their names we've all come to know and, well, mostly love. But is 2019 set to bring more sizzle than steak? We'll find out after the break. Welcome back. Well, once the market darlings, the FAANGs soared for years, thwarting and dwarfing, destroying, if you like, or even acquiring the competition in their wake. But last year, these golden children fell from grace, clawing into bear market territory, wiping billions of dollars from their market cap before regaining some of that in the early part of 2019. Now, these tech giants have rebounded in the new year, but is it all too late? Has the past year left a sour taste in investor mouths? Is it time to finally break up with the FAANGs? Well, I spoke to MacroView's Clay Carter to find out. Clay Carter, thanks very much for joining us. We've just been talking about this, the endless debate of Apple versus Android, and I wanted to start off by getting your thoughts around Apple. We had their quarterly numbers out last week, and there was a bit in there for those who are bullish, there was a bit in there for those that are bearish. From your perspective, how do you see Apple tracking at the moment?
Well, I mean, I'm not terribly keen on Apple as an investment at this point because of the decline in the in smartphone sales. With the guidance they gave us for this quarter, smartphone sales will have dropped, you know, well over 20%. And of course, they said that the problem is China. You know, they pre-announced that on the 3rd of January. So the problem is China, weak economy. Well, the Chinese economy is still growing 6.5% roughly, and the problem in China for them, it's competition. It's Xiaomi, it's Huawei, it's Vivo, it's Oppo, it's the other smartphone makers that are making phones that are not only a heck of a lot cheaper than Apple's products, they're every bit as good, and they're also made more for the Chinese taste. So that to me is a big headwind for Apple.
Let's move on to some of the other FAANG stocks, because we've had Amazon and Apple out as well. Might start with Amazon. The numbers all looked good in terms of their headline numbers, but the market taken aback by the guidance given as from Amazon looking ahead for the rest of the year. Your thoughts on how they're tracking and whether or not you're going to start to see, I suppose, more from outside of AWS, which continues to be the heart and soul, the engine, if you like, of the broader Amazon business.
Absolutely. Look, I say the numbers were great. Good growth pretty well everywhere. But guidance was at 56 to 60 billion. Consensus was 60 billion. Well, Amazon tends to be a bit conservative, so I don't have necessarily, a huge problem with the guidance being a bit light. But having listened to the call, I think the market got a sense that 2018 was a relatively light spending year, a light investment year. 2019 is going to be a heavier investment year. So if you're going to want to hold or get into Amazon, you're going to have to put up with these various spending cycles that go on in the business. In 2014 through 2016, they were in the penalty box. Stock was trading at $250, $300 because they just weren't profitable. And then all of a sudden they turned. They've been immensely profitable. But I think now they're going to go back to a number of quarters of spending, so possibly the margins are lower, profitability is less.
It seems to be a similar story from Alphabet. Again, headline numbers looked good. You've got some extra capex though kicking in, and the impact on margins seemed to spook investors, certainly in after-hours trades. It hasn't been out long, but your thoughts around Alphabet, of course, the parent company to Google, and how they're placed moving forward, particularly this big ramp-up for them as far as AI is concerned.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, Google is one of the best plays for AI because they're spending a lot of money on AI, and AI is literally in every aspect of their business and will be more and more going forward. Again, they admit that will be ramping up the spending next year. That will impact margins. That being said, when you invest in technology, and I've been investing in technology for a very long time, you have to put up with these investment cycles because these companies don't become the companies they are without really high expenditures on capex and R&D to sort of stay ahead, to hire the right people, to make the right products. So yeah, it's not a big concern about me. Google Alphabet is the second cheapest FAANG after Facebook, probably 22 times earnings. Revenues are still going to grow between 20 to 25% certainly over the next 3 years. I like a lot of their interesting other businesses. I like Waymo, the self-driving car business. I like Verily, which is their healthcare business. Eventually, these will be monetized and spun out. And as I say, Google is one of the best. If you want to invest in AI, you want to hold some Google.
Yeah. You mentioned Facebook. Just it's hard to think of a FAANG stock, or actually more broadly, just a stock over in the US, one of the large caps that's been in the naughty books as much as Facebook has, and there were concerns over what some of the issues around privacy of data and so forth was going to mean for their earnings. Well, they had a big market reaction to their numbers. Your thoughts on Facebook? I mean, it's one of the cheaper FAANGs now. Is it shaping up as perhaps one of the better options?
Yeah, I still like Facebook. I was a bit frustrated with them last year with all the regulatory problems they got into. But that being said, advertisers have not left the platform. Advertisers are increasingly using their platforms and paying more. Numbers were great. Guidance was good. And the fact that they're talking more and more about the family, the Facebook family, which is the platform, which is Messenger, which is WhatsApp, and which is Instagram. And Instagram now has 500 daily average users. Instagram Stories is working really well. So I think going forward, as Facebook monetizes the other parts of the Facebook family, I think they'll enjoy this certainly 25%, 30% revenue growth going forward, and advertisers are perfectly comfortable.
Well, that is Swipe for this week. Don't fret though, if you want more Swipe, there is always plenty on offer. You can catch up on the show on yourmoney.com.au. We also have a podcast. I'm James Daggar-Nickson. Thanks for watching.